Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Dentistry Unmasked. My name is David Rice. I'm the chief editor at Dentistry IQ. I happen to know a partner in crime over there.
Hey, Pamela Maragliano-Muniz. Welcome everybody, and welcome to our amazing guests. We have good friends and very well-known dentists here, Doctors Flucke and Paul Feuerstein. Welcome, guys.
Well, we know that the amazing friends couldn't make it, but we were hanging out, drinking Red Bull, and they just grabbed us and said the amazing friends are late, so here we are.
Everybody has to have us be on the C list once in a while.
That's right.
So one thing I would love to chat about with you guys is, you both have had practices for a long time, but you have been able to balance your editor life and your practice life. How did you go from being in private practice to becoming an editor? And was it like a passion project, or I know you guys are both tech people, like how did that turn into what it is?
Well, first John should tell you how we first met online.
The real story or the
online?
Like a Match.com thing? Or?
Well,
Grindr?
No, this was before then. But he did tell me that his name was Trixie, and I've always had a thing for girls with an X in their name. So it turned out he was not 5'2" and did not have blue eyes.
We were on the internet together before the internet existed. Probably, we were on dial-up modem.
Before Al Gore invented it.
Yeah, way before.
That was early on.
And we were in a group. It was called the Internet Dental Forum. And it was set up by a dentist named David Dodell actually went to Tufts, who's a brilliant software engineer, hardware engineer.
An IT genius.
And he set up this little pod in Arizona and said, if anybody's a dentist, come on in, and we would talk to each other typing. It was all virtual. And
email based.
Yeah. And eventually, John and I and Marty Jablow and a few other people just became pen pals, for lack of a better word.
Wow.
And then, as it was evolving, as the whole internet space was evolving, we started doing some things. There wasn't such a thing as online at that point, but strangely, the ADA got wind of what we were doing. This was back in
1998.
Yeah.
I can tell you for sure, 98.
So they invited the Internet Dental Forum to do an Internet Dental Forum, which nobody even understood. We didn't even understand what we were doing.
They called it Technology Day, and they just brought a bunch. And it was actually the day before the ADA. It was kind of like a special little session.
Wow.
So for the first time, I actually met John.
Yep.
I said, "Oh, I thought you were. I didn't know you had an accent,
Yeah.
And
I was like, you looked much taller in type.
and so what it led to was, we were on the ADA program, and all of a sudden, here we are on the program speaking about PCs and things like that never existed in dentistry before, and it became sort of a path. And since specifically myself, Marty, and John were the leaders of this whole process. I can't say leaders, but in the tech side, we understood how to make. We've all built a computer from scratch.
We were the hackers of the group, really. We really
and
were.
we just became great friends. And then all of a sudden, a dentist, he's gone since now. His name is Bob Davis.
Yep.
Wrote a newsletter, and it was called
Tools Are Us.
Tools Are Us. Tools Are Us. And so we started writing little articles for this thing.
And he mailed it. He had like a mailing list, and he would go to Kinko's and print this and fold them by hand and stick a label and staple it and then mail it to I don't know how many, like hundreds of dentists.
And so, so there we were writing columns back in, hard copy columns. And, so then the writing begins. So my personal tale is I was writing a lot of things and giving a lot of lectures on high tech and low tech, whatever tech was at the time. And Joe Blaze approached me, who was the editor-in-chief of DE for a long time. He says, could you write me it was around the millennium, in fact, when Y2K was happening. Yeah. But actually before that, he said, could you write a couple of things, about stuff? He said, I don't understand any of this stuff. So I was writing, like, what is Windows XP and what does all this mean? And he says to me, I remember this quote, he said, I wouldn't know Windows XP from a sweet pea. So I need somebody to write about it. So I started writing a column. Next thing you know, I'm writing a column. How about next month? How about next? All of a sudden, I'm writing a column every single month since I don't know when.
Like 99,
in the 90s. And he says, well, we may as well make you the technology editor of DE. So I did that for up 10 years. So every month I had a deadline, and you know about deadlines.
I still remember being on the show floor in the old McCormick and Paul running up to me and telling me, I just became the technology editor of dental economics. And we like hugged and we were high-fiving. I was beating him over the head. And I was like, you made it, you made it.
But little did I know that I was going to follow my path from school and wait till the day before the column was due to write it that night, overnight, and 3 in the morning I'm submitting these things. So that was that. So the short stories, I did that for a zillion years, and then I got in a dark alley in Manhattan. Jim Radcliffe walked up to me. He says, "What are you doing with DE? We'd like to have you over here." I said, "What's the deal?" He says, "We'd just like to have you over there." I'm thinking, "Oh, is this going to be like a baseball thing?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we just like you over there. And I thought about it.
I was the nerd dentist to be named later.
Yeah, exactly. And so I did it. So I just continued, moved from column 8. Oh, I know what the deal was. I want to be on the cover. I said, I want to be on that cover. He said, we can do it. We've got a deal. So then I've been writing that column. And then a couple of years ago, Damon Adams retired after 20-plus years, calls me up, says, Paul, how'd you like to be the editor now? I go, what do you do? He said, yeah, you just read articles. I said, oh,
He
okay.
just kind of
It's
put
really,
the magazine
it's really
together.
easy,
It's really
isn't it?
easy,
Doesn't take a lot of time.
He forgot to tell me I have to run the entire magazine.
Yeah.
That was by the way.
He was like, yeah, and you can start in 30 days.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I remember Paul called me and he was like, oh my gosh, I just got all this stuff and I have no idea what I'm doing.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, your career peaked with dental economics.
Absolutely.
And it's been a downhill
downward
slope ever
spiral.
since.
Yeah.
Spiraling.
Out of control.
Yes.
So yeah, and you know, so that's just path A. So you asked about the rest of my life. So I was in full-time practice, then I dropped to Monday through Thursday. Then I sold the practice to my associate, and I became his associate. Story for another day. That's a dental economics story. And then, the end of the story is he went bankrupt.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
That Paul spent his entire life putting together.
and then so I sit to this day, 50 years into this. I practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I do full-time magazine work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Also days and nights because I'm working internationally. And then I come to meetings like the SwileCon meeting and the various dental meetings. So I keep saying yes, and someone has to teach me how to say no.
I don't know that word.
You have so much spare time, Paul.
Yeah. And it's kind of ruined my rock career. So I'm going to leave it at that and let John go on from here.
I don't play guitar nearly as well as Paul does. So, it's funny you talk about that tech day because the one thing I remember is nobody, like you said, nobody knew anything about computers, and I remember that I didn't have enough hard drive space on my laptop that was like this thick to actually run the PowerPoint that I gave at the ADA. So I had, do you remember the Jazz drive?
Yep.
So I had a SCSI Jazz drive connected through the SCSI port that I paid extra money for on this laptop. And I was kind of talking about that, and I said, there's this thing coming, this new thing that's called USB, and it stands for Universal Serial Bus. And I remember everybody in the audience went and wrote that down. And I was like, I think maybe I'm onto something here. But it just, same thing. I did that, and a couple of companies came to me and said, you take things apart? And I said, yeah. So they said, okay, well, we're going to send you some stuff, take this apart. I had a computer company that said at one point in time, do you have a computer in your operatory? And I was like, yes. And they said, well, we're trying to create this sensor that will connect to anybody's computer, so can you take your computer apart and install a bunch of hardware? So I did that. And then, I don't know, it was shortly after you got the DE gig that Dental Products Report came to me, and they said, hey, we've read some of your stuff, because I was still writing for Tools R Us.
Yep.
And they said, would you be interested in working for, at that time, dental practice and finance?
Well, that's right.
And I said, yeah, I can do that. And it just kind of just spiraled. And I will say the one thing, sometimes people will come up to Paul and I at meetings. They probably do it to you guys too. Like, I want to do what you do. Tell me, like, what's the plan? How did you, show me like the Excel spreadsheet of your, and I always say, I kind of feel like I was drinking a malt in this malt shop, and I turned at just the right angle, and some guy said, have you ever wanted to be in pictures? Because there was no plan.
It just happens.
I just remember that Bob was on the Internet Dental Forum, Bob Davis, that had the Tools R Us newsletter, and he said, he just put a general email out. I need somebody to write an article about using an intraoral camera. And Paul was on there, and Paul was a pretty prolific writer at the time and was given a lot of advice. He wasn't writing articles, but he was given a lot of advice. And I don't know if I've ever told you this, actually, but I remember thinking, that's Paul's gig. Paul's because Paul's the one that can describe all this thing in print. And I don't remember if he actually asked you, like, in public, but I think you said, like, I'm too busy to do it or something like that at that time. And so I thought, well, I guess I can probably scribble something down as good as the next guy. And
I did leave out one little piece of the puzzle. In 1978, I put a computer in my office.
Yep.
There was no such thing as Bill Gates, or he was still in grade school. And it was this gigantic, it was the size of a washing machine. The hard drive was actually this big.
Wow.
It looked like an album.
I think it had two megabytes maybe on the whole thing. And when you did a backup, you had two people. You had to take it out, put it back into this thing. And
I actually mentioned, anybody that's reading Dental Products Report, this month's article, or maybe it's last month's article, it's the one about the best of class. I mentioned that you were one of the first people that ever installed a computer in your office.
All my friends are buying cars, and I spent like $20,000 on this computer. What's wrong with you?
But that's a good point when people, to your point, John, when people come up and say, like, hey, give me like the recipe to do all these things, is you guys actually did do all these things. It just wasn't what people think it was. I mean,
I don't think neither of us was on a path. We want to be famous dentists.
Right.
I mean,
we
just did things, and we knew a lot of people. To this day, we knew a lot of people. But I mean, John and I both get the same thing. Somebody will come up to me and they go, "Can I talk to you?" I go, "What do you mean?" "Well, you're Dr. Paul." I go, "I'm just this guy from Massachusetts. I mean, I have a practice like you did. I just happen to know a little bit more about some of these things than you do. That's it. We're very approachable and touchable."
I want to tell a quick story on Paul that I think this just tells your human side. We were on a cruise. We were doing an Alaskan cruise, and we were on the inside passage. And so everybody lines up on the bow of the ship.
It was a CE cruise.
It was a CE cruise, yeah. And so everybody lines up on the bow because there's like islands and then coast, and they're maneuvering. It's really exciting. And my son was with us, and my son was like 4 at the time. And so he's a little guy, and he wants to see, and there's this huge sea of humanity, and I'm talking to somebody, and he's like, Dad, and he's yanking my pants. I'm like, just a minute. And I had the sudden horror that all parents have, which is I looked down, and he was gone. And I was like, oh, and I looked up, and about 10 feet away, he's sitting on Paul's shoulders. Now, Paul's 6'4", so this kid is now like 8 feet, and he can see everything, and the smile on his face, and Paul held him on his shoulders for like 2 hours. That's the approachable thing about him. And that's who he is.
Still, to this day, they're my stepkids.
Yeah, they are. But that's just, we're just normal people. People like, can I get a picture? And I'm like, oh my gosh, if you want to break the camera, feel free.
But the balance, I don't have a balance. I mean, I really don't have a balance. It's just what I do.
I don't sleep much.
And the old saying, be careful what you wish for, because people can say, how did you get to be on the podium at Chicago Midwinter or whatever? And you must be making zillions of dollars doing that. No, you're actually losing money every time you walk out of that office. I mean, you do this because you love it and you have a passion for teaching and giving forth information to people, and that's the whole story.
You want to make the world a better place. You want to make, I always say that my big thing is technology that improves patient outcomes. And if you improve patient outcomes, then you make things better for the doctor, for the team, and for the profession. And I mean, this is the only thing I ever wanted to do. I wanted to be a dentist when I was 3, and I just got lucky. I was just in the right place at the right time, and somebody said,
I have to say, and you may have the same thing. John and I will be sitting in some very expensive restaurant that's being paid for by somebody else, by some corporation, and we're sitting there going, do you believe, when we were in dental school, do you ever think we'd be sitting here at the Ritz-Carlton and hanging, I mean, it's kind of a crazy thing, going back to when you were a student in school, and this is how did this happen? How did this happen?
I totally get food FOMO when I see all like it's almost like a mini competition when you all are in different cities from one another, and I'm like,
I've gotten to be, over the years, be friends with Dan Fisher, Dr. Fisher, who is the guy that started and owns Ultradent, and he has told me so many times, he's like, John, Fisher's a lucky guy. And I love him because he's incredibly smart, but he's also incredibly humble. And I think that's the whole thing, is I just got lucky.
I wouldn't say lucky. I would say you're in the right place at the right time. And I think that it's an evolution. You say you get an opportunity. Yep. You're not scared to say no.
Right.
But another thing I think that's really interesting is that dentists are funny creatures. You think about it, and dentists, you might have a dentist down the road and there's like competition there. So there's this like unspoken thing. But I mean, here we are, the editors of 4 major publications in dentistry. And I mean, I love you guys individually and collectively, and that we can do these things and be friends.
Well, it's not competitive. I mean, we're each doing a slightly different aspect of what we're doing in a different format. And we've talked together and tried to share ideas and, throw things back and forth and share people. I find certain authors and I say, this author might not be very good for my clinical side, but maybe it would work better for you or for you, John. Mm-hmm. So there's a sharing in there. The bosses might not think this is so great, but
the rising tide floats all boats. I love that expression, but it's so true. And Pam and I did a deal in it was August, right? Yeah, it was August. Mm-hmm. And it was was funny because it was a program for Sonicare, and when they first came to me and we kind of talked about it, they were like, well, how do you envision this happening? And I just said, well, Pam and I are just going to talk. And when you say that to a corporation, sometimes they're like, what? Yeah. You're going to what?
And here's the 30 questions you must answer.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it was so funny because we logged on to the whole thing, and like the big red recording thing clicks in the corner, and Pam and I just talked because Pam's my girl. And it's just, it was no work. It was just, we respect each other. We like each other. And I mean, it'd be the same way. I mean, yesterday I worked with Paul all day here on the podium, and we were just like, okay, who speaks first? Because we're just, it's just, you like each other. I've known David for a long time. You just have that warm fuzzy for people, and it's all about just making the world a better place.
Did you rock, scissors, paper? Who was going to start?
Nope.
We kind of looked with like terrified eyes at each other. Yeah, we're like, Marty, you got.
And we horrified the ADA because they had us set up in some system. Oh, we're gonna have 3 laptops running. How do you do that? We have our own hub. We have our own wires. We set up this. You want to do a short story about the Newark story?
Oh yeah. So we years and years ago. And once again, it was before broadband. Everybody was on dial-up. Yeah. And we were going to do a program together, and we were trying to think of how are we going to share, so we're not duplicating the same data.
There was no USB drive, so we're trying to figure out we can plug our computers into each other and share it, shoot stuff back and forth.
So our friend Marty Jablow lives in New Jersey, and then Paul's in Boston. I'm in Kansas City. So we said, well, let's just Marty will drive. Paul and I will fly to Newark Liberty Airport, and there's a Marriott there right by the airport, so we'll just get a room and we'll just spend like 3 or 4 days in this room. And was this pre or post 9/11?
Post.
Okay. So we almost got arrested because we had all this hardware and all these computers and these cables were running around.
Saw this hub going on with all this stuff.
So we had all our computers connected. So the only way we could like share stuff, and because otherwise it would take a week to like send Paul a PowerPoint slide. And somebody, I think they called the cops or security came by or something because we're right by Newark Airport and we got all this junk going on. He does not look like the Unabomber. So that's totally good. As I like to say, this is the Paul Feuerstein starter set that I'm sporting here. But, when we were on our Alaskan cruise, too, I actually saw him get a haircut.
Oh, yeah. That was
a big moment in my life.
We did a video of that whole thing.
Yeah.
Were you crying?
I was disturbed. But all I can say is I do this because I can. And it bothers my friends who don't have this hair. And as long as the camera's not way over here, it's pretty good.
We should have like a little fan going in your head.
The Beyonce moment.
Yeah.
Because all I got is the color. I don't have the same. I can't do that. But,
yeah, this is what dentistry does to you. This used to be nice and dark.
That'll never happen to me.
Hey, girl. That's why we love you.
So, all right. So let's talk a little bit of clinical. You have a lot of dentists that say, I want to be you, I want to do these things. And you say, I want to do the right thing. Like, what does that mean to you?
You want to do that? You want me to do that?
Go ahead, John.
I don't care if you're the CEO of a company. I won't mention any companies, but you can be the president or the CEO of a huge dental company that owns multiple smaller companies. The person that you work for is the patient. The person that sits in the chair. I tell my patients all the time, dentistry is a weird profession. I mean, from a reception standpoint, we are way in the bubble. You can't see what we're doing. And you can't ask us about it while we're doing it. And the trust that has to go into, basically being blind and mute, and then letting somebody get way in that personal space, and yet you trust them to do the right thing.
Yeah.
That's huge. And so, if you're the CEO of a company, congratulations. That person puts their tail on my chair. That person is paying you. And you have to look out for what is absolutely the best for them. Dan Fisher calls it the daughter test, which is if my daughter was sitting here, would I do this exact same thing? I love that. That's Dan Fisher's, it's not mine. But you've got to do what's right. Money does not show up because you emphasize money. Money shows up because you emphasize the love of the people who trust you.
And all four of us are in the luxurious position that companies come to us and say, you're an expert on materials and you're an expert on this. Would you like to try this new material? And the answer is I don't want to do a pre-approval.
Yeah.
If it's been pre-approved, if it's FDA approved, and you're just ready to do a launch, I'll give you my information about it.
Yeah.
But I'll tell my patients right away. Now they love it because they come in, what do you got new today, Dr. Paul?
Yeah.
What's the latest thing there? So it's a very careful thing because you don't want to do some little project with the patient and the next thing you know, oh gee, the composites are all failing and so it's a mixed blessing there. Way back when I was working with the company called Bronte's in Massachusetts, we were developing a new scanner.
Which they sold to 3M.
Well, yeah, that's another.
It's a big deal.
Well, they sold it for me $100 million.
Yeah.
I wasn't an owner, but when the patients
they sent him a nice box of chocolates.
Yeah.
Delicious chocolates.
Yeah.
But when the patients came in, we were under the FDA rules to say we're doing an experimental process. Now it wasn't an end result thing, so we were preparing teeth. I was preparing teeth, taking a traditional impression, a digital impression, and then blindly, they'd get these crowns back to me, and we'd do an assessment. Nothing like Gordon Christensen, but an assessment. And we'd pay the patients $25. And the patients thought this is the greatest thing. But they had to sign off on it. They knew it was experimental, but the end result was I was not going to put in a crown that didn't fit. So, but that was kind of an interesting journey.
And you do get these things. I am going to mention a company, but it's because they did the right thing. But I was evaluating a mill a few years ago, and the only blocks that they had were manufactured by 3M. So I was milling crowns, trying them in, taking images, doing all these tests, and one day I get this call from 3M, and they're like, how many of those have you put in the mouth? And I'm like, I don't know, it's maybe 30. And they're like, stop. Please. And I was like, what? Yeah. Why? And they were like, they're all debonding. We don't know what it is, but they're all debonding, so stop.
And they made it public. It wasn't a secret.
Yes, yeah, and that's what they did. They absolutely did the right thing. The only thing I would say to people that are listening to this is just that I redid those because that was the right thing to do. Yeah. But nobody came to me and said, "Oh, here's all this money for your time and trouble." I went into it and I said, "Okay, I'll try this," and my patients were in on it and they knew.
Yeah, great points.
But I replaced all this stuff at my cost because that's what I do.
Yeah.
But it's also because it's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do.
Feels like a theme.
It is a theme. Well, we are out of time, which is so sad. I
know, crazy.
How does that happen?
Has it been 6 days already?
I know.
Wow.
Can you share how people can follow you?
Go, Paulie.
I'm easy. I have a very simple email address. It's drpaul@toothfairy.com.
Love it.
I'm on Facebook, but my Facebook page is really a personal Facebook page. But I do have, I think it's called, I have to post on it. I haven't posted all year. I think it's Paul Feuerstein, DMD, Dental Technology. So I better you just give me some impetus to put some more things on
But
there.
if you follow just his personal stuff, you will see some amazing food because this guy. And mine, I'm really lucky. There's only one Flucke in dentistry in the United States. So everything is either J Flucke, letter J, Flucke, or Flucke J. So you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, that kind of stuff. I've got a YouTube channel. I post videos. I'm also a big baseball fan, so if you're really interested in the results of the hot dog derby from the Kauffman Stadium.
Not to mention that's Kansas City, and where everybody's a Swiftie now.
Yeah.
Oh, so many Swifties. Many Swifties.
Kelsey's jerseys went up, sales 400% last week.
Crazy.
The week before SmileCon.
Wow.
Well, thanks, Pam, for that.
Thank you. No, we're so happy to have you guys here.
You're welcome.
We have some air tags for you guys, so we want to thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Is this just so you can figure out where we are?
Everybody's figured our shtick out.
I'll give one to my
Seems
wife.
So innocent.
It's just a Life 360 air tag. I don't know what your problem is.
Don't worry, it'll be fine. Totally fine.
Trust me.
No one's.
This has been great. Thanks so much. Let's
guys,
do part 2 someday.
Yeah, this was great.
This was awesome.
Yeah, super fun. So we'll definitely have to have you back on again and enjoy the rest of SmileCon. And everybody, for Dentistry Unmasked, we will see y'all next week.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for watching or listening to the show this week, and thanks to our guests and sponsors on this episode.
Please check out our social media at Dr. Pamela_Maragliano and at Dental Economics Official.
Or you can check me out at Ignite DDS or at Dr. David Rice.
And go to dentaleconomics.com to receive dental economics. You can choose to receive DE in print or digitally, and you can also get the details of our Principles of Practice Management conference on our website.
If you have topics or guests or anything you'd like to talk about on the show, send us an email to dentistryunmaskedpodcast@gmail.com, and we will do our very best to make it happen. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.